All right, the next assignment, if you look at the syllabus, we've kind of made really good progress. So almost out of necessity, because I started introducing concepts that and very easily introduced other ones, I sort of ran into a lot of what you see under week 7 and 9. We already understand camera settings. We already understand lens calibration. We went through that in pretty good detail. The render output selection, so that's basically what I showed you with turning off the devignetting or turning on devignetting and all that. And then, of course, like your resolution and stuff, your image size, DPI, that kind of stuff. So then the only other thing that I think in week 7 and 9 that we need to accomplish is this multimedia approach. Now, I'm going to introduce to you your assignment to study the multimedia approach stuff. But I guess I want to preface a little bit about, why are we studying multimedia design and representation? So when I say multimedia, what comes to mind?
Movies, films.
Sure, yeah, movies and films. Actually, that's like the one I was going to lead you all to if you didn't get it right the first time. So, yeah, movies and films. But multimedia is like a bunch of other things. Usually, some people say art, they say writing and stuff, and multimedia can be painting on canvas or sketching on paper, or etching on wood. That all sort of falls into the realm of multimedia design. But there's one thing that all multimedia design has in common. What do you think that is?
Design.
Huh?
Design.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's the broadest possible term. Yeah, multimedia design, yes, design is what it has in common. But what about design, right? I'll just give it to you. Composition, okay? It all has some form of structured composition. Even chaos is a form of composition. So it's a very popular sort of archibabble way of looking at it. But anyway, so this is going to be our assignment. So what we're going to look at is image composition. So there was a question that came up sort of earlier in the class, I think it was in a week or two, looking at you guys in the back, about is this all we're doing, right? Because essentially I taught you all the technical skills that you really need in order to accomplish decent renders, at least for the raw render, up to this point. And it's only week 6. So what else are we going to do? We're going to study very heavily image composition. That means where are we placing elements on the page and how does it relate to our design concept? Okay, an image doesn't just get technically composed into something that looks good. That particular compositional choice or method is used because of the design concept. Does that make sense? So if your design concept is symmetry, you're not going to show an asymmetrical view of your building per se. For instance, the Salk Institute. So one of the most famous pictures of the Salk Institute, let me pull it up real quick. There. Okay, it's a symmetrical composition of a symmetrically laid out building. Does that make sense? Okay, so, and I'm not saying that you can't break the rules or bend the rules or interpret it however you choose to interpret it, but all I'm trying to say by that, by sort of bashing you over the brain with the most obvious example, is that choices are made for a reason. So when we're going to be studying image composition, we're going to sort of reverse engineer that to understand what makes great imagery, what makes good composition. So the description looks a little bit like this. It's going to be kind of a research project, but it's going to be really fun. We're going to look at cinematography, and we're going to start to understand how movies are composed, right? So any movie that you might choose is going to have some sort of all of these views for the most part. On occasion, you might find a few that are difficult to nail on certain types of movies, but you're pretty much always going to find something that is composed in rule of thirds, something that's composed with symmetry, something that's composed with image balancing, leading the viewer's eye, and then framing and objectifying are actually very common as well. Some of the ones that sometimes are a little hard to find are wide angle, and on occasion depth of field. But depth of field, really all that means is that things are blurry either in the foreground or background, and the focus is drawn forward or backward in the image. So that's a fairly common one as well. And then another one that often shows up, especially in like artsy films like Wes Anderson movies and stuff, are unusual viewpoints. So these are all things that create drama and intrigue, and they're all things that we're going to explore in this module. Okay, and since we sort of covered pretty much everything else, it's going to be a rather short module. Just giving you a heads up on that. Okay, so what questions do you have about this so far? Yes? Allison, were you raising your hand, or did you just put your hand up?
No, I was.
Okay, because you were like this. And I was... Okay. Anyway, so we're gonna talk offline, I think, out of this video about what each of these are, and then I'll jump back into recording and I'll actually walk through, the assignment that I would do in this case. Okay. So there are no questions about any of this so far. You're all just really intrigued about image composition, right?
Yes.
All right, great. Okay, so I'll let you guys read through the text on this, but that's not really the important part. I'll explain everything that you need to deliver to me for this assignment.